welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. We are here with our friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman. We also have our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. Guys, there's a lot going on in the world. We just had the presidential inauguration in the United States of America. I'm sure we all watched that. That just happened. So to timestamp this episode, that happened yesterday, which is Wednesday. We're recording this on a Thursday. Maybe you guys will be hearing it on a Friday. Yeah, it was a big event. We're going to hit that. We're going to talk about some other things later in the episode. But what have you guys been up to? Anything? You know, Shane, I know I say this on so many episodes, but like I used to see you every day. I never see you now. And in fact, I feel like Max gets annoyed when we first get on the Zoom because Shane and I are just catching up. And then Max comes on, and then after like about 5 minutes of prattle, Max is like, all right, let's get to it. But the thing is, Shane and I don't really get to talk.
5 minutes? It's always like 2 minutes.
Okay. Let me say a couple things. Your gossip, your work gossip is always excellent, but it's nothing you guys would ever say on air or something that any of our audience would even know or care about. I love listening to you guys gossip about things. Also, what's happening in the world, I find that very interesting. My only thing I was trying to avoid as a producer is sort of like the thing where anything going on with you? Not really. And then I feel like we waste a minute kind of trying to pull some boring ass thing that happened. But if you got the goods, then deliver the goods. Let's talk about what we've been up to lately. Shane, what do you got? Impress me.
I definitely do not have the goods. I haven't really been doing anything.
You guys are boring ass dads. Nobody's going outside into the world.
Wow.
Like, what could we possibly talk about? Myself included. I'm a boring person now too.
Well, I wanted to follow up with you, Max, to see if your point on Kyrie Irving has changed at all. Because I feel like you were upset. You had this idea that, hey, he makes a lot of money, therefore he should get out and dance for your entertainment. Now that you see that Kyrie is suffering a little bit, like there was a media clip where someone asked him if he was hurting or not, and Kyrie nodded like he was okay, but his eyes welled up with tears. And it was a very emotional moment, as if to say, hey, I'm going through some mental issue right now. Do you feel any different as you did last time? And do you have an apology, if so?
Tough questions off the top.
You know what? Kyrie is very interesting in that way because he can make you nuts because like he just doesn't seem to care or he says odd things. But then like anybody who kind of does who says odd things or acts sporadically, when you dig a little deeper, you go, his dad yelled at him a lot when he was growing up. Okay, I understand. Not that happened to Kyrie. I think he has a good relationship with his dad. So yeah, it is a good lesson for me to know that everybody is going through something. That all said, though, I'd say as a professional athlete, one of your main jobs is to communicate with the press. That is like actually after playing the game of basketball, your second duty is to deal with the press. And if him not doing that, means that he's sort of absent of that responsibility right now. So I don't know. I think that am I being too hard on him? Like Delonte West is another good example. That guy really has suffered, and he's obviously in rehab right now. I think a lot of people have a lot of patience for him because he's seeking help. Kyrie like kind of occupies this weird zone where he thinks he's smarter than you, but he's not telling you anything as well. Do you know what I mean? Like he kind of does both things at once, which makes it that much more confusing.
Yeah, but Delonte West is an extreme example of addiction and like very, very serious mental illness where I feel like Kyrie is just going through depression right now. And everyone acts like that's so high priority for us all to practice good mental health. But the second a high profile athlete who's getting paid millions, it's like, come on, you got all this money. This is your job. Shut up and play. But if it was just me going through this, everyone would be totally understanding, because no one really cares about me.
So to Max's point, though, I would say it's about methodology. So Shane, if you were going through like a mental issue and you needed time off from work, you would have to tell our boss. And he wouldn't maybe relay that to us, but you would know.
And I think Kyrie has talked to people. I could tell by Steve Nash's reaction. He knows more than he's giving off. But his boss isn't the press, right?
Shane, in your reading of it, Kyrie did go to his employers and he said, "Listen, I'm going through some shit. I'm going away for a bit." They're like, "Okay,
that's
cool."
not even what happened though. At first, they're like, "We don't know where Kyrie is."
He just disappeared.
Right?
Like,
yeah, he did disappear. Anyway,
if Kyrie was going through something, I guess in a perfect world, and who are we to say anything? His like the Nets would say, "Hey, listen, Kyrie's taking some personal time," which they did say, and we're going to have no further comment on it. And then maybe the press at that point is actually getting too greedy and it kind of warps the way we view the story because we're like, Max, you had a look.
No, I think it's the precedent that he had set for himself. I think this is the reason why it's become such a hot button issue. If Steph Curry, for instance, was like, didn't show up for practice, and people were like, oh, there's probably pretty good reasons. Steph's always been forthcoming for us. Kyrie has a history of fucking with people. Like he said that the earth is flat. And he also says lots of weird things.
He opened the season by refusing to talk to the press.
Yeah. So I just don't think there was much rope given to him in this case. Which kind of makes sense because that's sort of the position that he set himself up for by acting that way in the past. But that's not to say I shouldn't have more patience for him, because maybe I should have.
Yeah, I think people who act and do strange things are more likely to suffer from these sort of bouts of depression or whatever he's going through.
It raises a very fascinating question about like our capacity for tolerance with certain people. You know what I mean? It's like, and this gets to the heart of sort of the whole mental health conversation. You know what I mean? It's like, we do have to be more understanding, but if, you know, it's like, where is the line? Like, we're all trying our best, and it's like some people need more help than others. And it is like that interesting thing where it's like, you know, Kyrie will get more rope maybe because he's struggling. But at the same time, he does have a job to do. And I don't know what the line is there for, and that's not just for NBA players, but that's for any like job or situation.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we don't, you know, we started a little heavy on the old, the Kyrie stuff. And if he's suffering, I hope that he gets well. I hope everybody's well that is going through stuff, including anyone's listening to this right now. Shane, I was going to ask, I saw a story. I think it might have been from this family tree or maybe Alex's Insta. I don't know where I saw it, but it was, you had ordered a bunch of jeans online. And so
yes, this was a big event. Yeah.
It was a well thought out shot. So I don't know if it was Alex thought it out or, you know, you are a director. So I imagined you guys planning out the shot, but the camera, it slowly scrolled past like 5 jeans that have been bought. And then it gets to the last pair of jeans that you think are laid out, but you're in them and you're laid out.
I'm in the jeans.
You're in the jeans. It's a great shot. But the thing that stood out, and that leads to my question, is how long your hair looked in that shot. And it made me think. It
looks like a ridiculous wig. I asked her not to go on my face afterwards. You know, we've worked with cinematographers. They don't always listen to the direction. And I didn't want to do it multiple takes. That being said, we still did 5. But
you did 5 takes, you say?
Yeah, that was the first one in that setup. There was various setups from around the house, but that's the one that ended up working the best.
So it made me wonder, though, when I was looking at this video, how long are you going to go with your hair? Like till the end of the pandemic? Are you going to be a long hair guy going forward? Will it get to like, are you going to be like Steven Adams or like our boss Randall? Like what's your deal? Have you done a ponytail yet? What's your look going to be?
I can do a ponytail. I have done it once when I was up at the cottage, and it turned Alex on to no end. But but that's a story for another day. But you know, I'm not a political guy, but this is kind of a political statement that, hey, I'm being safe. I'm not getting my haircut. Not that you can't get a haircut at your home, but I don't care about my hair that much. But I do like it longer. Alex is going crazy for it. So there is some advantages to it. And sometimes I look at my old pictures from the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm like, wow, it feels like way more me. And I would have never had this me if this pandemic never took place. So in a way, I'm finding myself on this weird journey we're all on.
It is a journey. Have you guys seen the new Weezer video that just came out?
No, is it hair?
I got a text from your brother at 7:30 a.m. He'd be like, new Weezer song. It's awesome.
My God.
Every time Weezer puts out a new song, he texts Dan and I, and he basically is shameless about his fanboy, nature with that band, and he loves the song. So that song's okay. Yeah.
My brother has been defending every questionable Weezer record for like 2 decades now. He will not.
It's like his
abandon
comfort blankie, though. It's the thing. It's just like, oh, this is my blankie, though. This makes me feel safe and warm. And so whenever
you got him onto it, Mike.
Oh,
so what do you think of the song?
Honestly, it's actually a pretty good song. There's been some Weezer songs over the years where you go, okay, then Greg will be like, oh, there's a new Weezer song, and you listen, and you're like, okay. This one's actually, it's pretty good. And the video, Shaney, I'm interested to see what you think when you see it, but it's like a classic video that we might end up using like example pulls from, because they do like a lot of like practical like effects where like a guy goes into a computer, and the overall sentiment of the video is, I guess, like, you know, we're spending too much time on our phones, which is, you know, not an original thought, but again, they execute it in a way where it's like you could see it being in a commercial. We've seen this sort of versions of this execution a bunch of times. Anyway, the reason I bring this all up, and I was asking if you guys had seen the video, is Rivers is kind of doing the same thing you're doing, Shane. He's grown a mustache and his hair is at about like chin length. So it feels like he's also like in that COVID look phase where he's like, he also hasn't cut his hair during the pandemic. He's got a mustache. He's sitting at the piano. Anyway, you guys haven't seen it. Maybe I should have told you to watch it before we jumped on.
Who wore it best in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I think Rivers has like a professorial look with it. You know, he's kind of like, and you've got like, you've been doing it longer. Your hair's longer, so it actually looks cooler right now on the on thing. But yeah, like you said, the jean shot was a little bit wiggy.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what the man bun looks like, though. Maybe we'll try that on the next podcast.
Okay. Every pod I'll have a new look. Max is getting upset we're not talking about him, so he's looking off camera.
No.
But let's see your hair.
Jealous.
He's looking at his hair and his image.
I was watching video of a pod we did like a little while ago, and we were talking, tell this whole story. Max was like just looking totally off camera for like the whole time. It was just like, and like talking to Ash, making like faces, looking at his phone. It was like, come on, man. Be present.
I'm sure I was listening to the story. But
you got to watch that Weezer video, pal. Get off the phone, man.
Maxie, did you hear the new song though? Since my brother told you to listen to the new song.
I did. I listened.
Give
to
us
it,
your breakdown.
first thing in the
Give us your review quickly.
It's actually kind of interesting because I thought it was a totally like fine song. I didn't think it like blew. It didn't blow me away. It wasn't as like silly as some of their other more recent material. The thing which I didn't know though, which I found out afterward, was that it wasn't performed to a click drum. Those strings are actually real strings. It's like with a real orchestra. So the angle, as you said, is like that. It's we're going to go back to like the 70s and we're not going to use any computers, because most modern music, and the way Rivers often records now, is like a guitar going into a computer, not necessarily through a guitar amp. It's you can record strings on a keyboard and it sounds almost the same. So then it kind of made me appreciate it on a different level. But I just want to get your brother's. What did your brother say? Oh, so it was actually last night at 12:05. So I guess the song dropped at midnight.
Oh, God.
And then at 12:05, new Weezer song is great. Pumped. So and then the next, then at 9 a.m. I responded to him. I was like, is it? And I because I just listened to it. And then Dan sent a meme of Mark Ruffalo turning into the Hulk. When he like tears his shirt off, he's like, Greg right now. And then Greg said, get off your high horse. It's great. And then he continued to explain that all analog album recorded during COVID, no computers, no click tracks, just a band and orchestra. It's going to be sick.
Wow.
So, that
does sound cool.
I didn't know that analog part, which actually makes the video make a little bit more sort of thematic with everything overall.
Yeah, Greg said, he later said in the text thread, yeah, man, it's going to be Rivers' pet sounds.
Oh, God.
You never know.
It could be. It's the first song
1 week
off the
till the album drop, baby. I'm pumped. I'm happy for Greg, at least.
I started following a new Instagram account this weekend by Cycling Vigilante, Max. It's attached to you. I know I'm the guy with all the weird friends, as you stated last podcast, but Cycling Vigilante is a close friend of yours. And what is this guy going to start posting? What's the deal with this account?
Yeah, he posted his first thing, actually, I think this morning. And so I highly recommend everybody check it out and follow along. So basically, my friend who has to remain nameless, he'll only go by the Cycling Vigilante. He has started this account. If you missed the episodes, the Matt Devlin episode, I highly recommend you check out the intro of that. The Devlin interview is obviously awesome too. But basically, he goes around the city and gives tickets to anybody who's parked in a bike lane. And he posted his first IG post. And then, common reactions to the Cycling Vigilante. Number 1, providing a weak excuse. Example, just picking something up. 2, ripping up the ticket or crumpling it, as this person opted for in the photo. 3, appeal to empathy. I am also a cyclist. I rode my bike to school almost every day in the 7th grade. Number 4, pointing out transgressions by cyclists in Toronto. Number 5, moving to a proper parking spot. Thank you. That's what the Cycling Vigilante wants. Just move to a proper parking spot. Please stay out of the bike lane and call it out when you see it. Cycling Vigilante thanks you. Hashtag Cycling Vigilante. So it's a movement, and I think we all support it here at the Mike on Much podcast. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. It feels like the movement is rolling.
Mm-hmm. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's a bike pun.
But thanks for reminding to post that. That's good.
Yeah, 100%.
I just followed it. I didn't know he had an account yet, so I'm now following He Who Shall Remain Nameless's account. Well, I guess he has a name, the Cycling Vigilante.
Are you worried it's going to escalate at all to a strange point where we have to disassociate from him?
as he gets more radicalized and his
yeah.
No, I think it'll, like, how big could it get, right? Like,
that's what people always say, but I could picture in 3 months you making a statement at like City Hall or something.
Well, this is actually a good segue though, because I want to talk about Inauguration Day and then some of the events leading into it, with the insurrection at the White House. So, Mike, let's kick off that category.
Yeah, as anyone who's been following sort of news events of the world over the last couple of weeks, obviously you guys know about the, like Max said, the incident in the Capitol back on Jan 6th. 2 weeks later, Joe Biden was sworn in. He was inaugurated. He is now the president of the United States. They got there. Everything went off last night. There was like a 3-hour sort of program. I mean, aside from the events of the day where we saw the inauguration, we saw tons of celebrities, people like, Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez, John Legend, Bruce Springsteen, a Max Kerman favorite, Foo Fighters, Katy Perry had the big sort of closing event. I'm not sure how many of our listeners watched the whole thing. I ended up going through it. I was watching the Raptors game last night, but I taped it because I knew we were going to be talking about it today. And then I went through and I watched all the performances. And during the day while I was working, I actually had it on the TV as well, sort of the more ceremonial stuff where, Obama and Clinton, everybody was there. But yeah, it was pretty major event. It seemed to go off without a hitch in a pandemic world where you can't have these throngs of people cheering. I thought that they did it very, very, very well, or as well as you could do it in a time like this where the Capitol is locked down for fear of violence. And then also just, you couldn't have had, well-wishers there either because of the pandemic. Did you guys watch the whole thing throughout the day? And did you watch the sort of entertainment celebratory parts where, all of the artists performed? Shaney, how much did you catch?
I caught none of it, Mike. I did not
aficionado comes through again.
I did not. Well, yeah, but I was monitoring the photos of young Biden going around, which seemed a little bit strange because it was based on a lie. These photos of this hot Joe Biden went around from when he's in his 20s. But it said it was taken in 1996. So this rumor got started that Joe was this incredibly hot guy when he was like 50 or 46 years old or something like that. Have you guys seen that?
No, I missed this.
Oh, you guys got to follow the real pop culture, man. Because this was all over the web.
Okay.
Like, maybe it's because I follow so many like mom accounts and stuff, but it's like, check out Joe, hot Joe. We're here for it. And like those eyes like looking at him and like the tongues drooling. But I want to say that that's a false photo because that was actually taken in like the 60s and not the 90s.
Well, that's what this pod's about, clearing up sort of the misinformation that really is dragging down a nation.
Well, sometimes you need some levity on the pod, so I thought that was kind of a funny thing that was
I want to see Hot Joe now.
Hold.
Can I just look up Hot Joe on Twitter?
Look it up. He looks like a movie star.
Oh. Has he had hair transplants? Like, because he was losing hair, and now the hair's back, right? I think.
Well, I know that it seems like, so I don't know if you got I don't know how deep we want to get into this whole thing, but sort of the Trump side, they were trying to sort of create this controversy with his son, Hunter Biden, which, by the way, the name Hunter Biden is a pretty great name, Hunter's had like addiction issues and he's sort of had a troubled, time throughout his life. But these photos came out over the course of this sort of smear campaign of like Hunter Biden, like shirtless, like with a smoke in his mouth, like in a bathtub. You can tell he's kind of been on a bender. Like, I'm sure it's like, but they came out from, the smear campaign people because they thought they'd be like, look how embarrassing this is for Hunter Biden. But like the internet was like, dude is like the sexiest guy I've ever seen. Like everybody all of a sudden really was into Hunter Biden and like how he looked at, his demons or whatever, or his lost weekend or whatever that looked like. But anyway, so it doesn't surprise me that Joe Biden was attractive as a young guy.
Yeah, have you looked it up yet? Hot Joe Biden?
Here we go. Hot Joe Biden.
Hot Joe Biden. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, is it the one wearing a red shirt? He's like in a tropical place. Is it palm trees behind him?
Yeah, it's the red shirt.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that was absolutely not 1996.
No, he's like 97 years old right now. There's no way that was just
Joe
30
is
years ago.
is Joe older than Trump? I don't know. I know Trump's in his 70s. Joe got to be
he's older. Trump's like 72, and I believe Biden's like 78.
74. I think it was Biden 74?
No. They say, let's see. Joe Biden age.
I think he'll be 78 when he runs for his next one if he wins.
No
Like
way.
that.
He's older. He's 78 years old, Joe Biden.
right now.
Correct.
Wow.
So he'd be
That's
in,
why
he'd be in his
Trump
80s.
had so much confidence. Yeah.
He'd be in his 80s for his second term.
It's so funny that he's the leader of the free world because he like moves like kind of slow, you know. It's just like, a couple observations. It seemed like yesterday was all about Kamala, right? Like everybody was just like so fucking pumped for Kamala. Like it basically seemed like Joe. You know, it's like if you go to like your grandpa's birthday, and it's not really about your grandpa. It's like it's about like seeing your cousins and like seeing your uncle and aunt. And you're like, oh yeah, it's Grandpa Dave's birthday over there. Hey, happy birthday. Yeah, okay, happy birthday. Anyway, and then you start kind of carrying on the conversation. That's kind of what inauguration felt like because it was like everyone was pumped to see Kamala. Everyone was pumped to see Obama back there. Bill Clinton was hanging out. The George Bush rebrand is going amazing. Everyone loves George Bush more than anything. It's like, do you remember how much liberals hated George Bush, 10 years ago? Now everyone's like, that dude, that's my guy.
Wait,
that's my
it's
guy, George.
cool to like George Bush now?
It's been a very fascinating turn. No, you're right, Max. There's been a sentiment that he's like a tolerable conservative or something. Like it's like, see, we can get along. So you'll have like Obama and George Bush, and they'll be like, see, this shows that there can be unity. And then everyone forgetting about sort of like the unjustified war and all of the economic collapse under his policies. There's all this stuff that we've just kind of swept away because Trump was so bad that everybody's hearkening back to like just the sort of like, acceptable evil that was like that administration. Not my necessarily opinion, but that's the narrative.
Yeah, so we had a phone call with Universal with the label at 11:30 because we thought that this stuff kicked off at noon. So we're like, okay, we'll have like kind of this our weekly call where we catch up with our team, and then we'll just have CNN on. It was funny. It was 5 other people on the phone call, and everybody was like had CNN on in the background. And we're like, oh, I thought it started at noon, but it seems like, okay, there's Kamala. Okay, like speeches are happening, stuff's going on. And then I guess like, as the guy in the band who are, these people are there to kind of support us. It was sort of on me to be like, pull the plug on the meeting. So I was like at 11:31, I was like, guys, fuck it. No one wants to be here. Call is done. Watch CNN. And that's how long our conference call was. And so we watched the whole afternoon, basically. It was really fun. I thought that the speeches about like American exceptionalism, I always kind of like roll my eyes at that stuff because I'm like, come on, guys, you're not actually that great. Look around the world, look at Canada, look at a lot of countries in Europe. It's like you're not that special. But it did feel really good actually this time, seeing like people talk proudly about America. Mike, did that hit you any differently, seeing Biden say the platitudes, or were you equally as eye-rolly as you probably would be in the past?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I find too, like, even when I watch it or I'm watching like a speech on TV, I don't even necessarily watch as myself. I find myself watching as maybe like the people the overwhelming voice, I guess, on Twitter, whatever this sort of like undefinable thing is. I find myself watching apart from the people that are excited by it. But it's like we've spent sort of the last 4 or 5 years kind of watching a bunch of events unfold, whether it's like a speech by Trump or like certain policy decisions. That people you wouldn't necessarily like enjoy spending time with are happy. They're like, yes, I'm getting my way. We're being heard. I felt like people that are like-minded to me as I was watching these speeches be held, or sort of delivered competently, or, when Joe, when they talk about American exception, the pride, it wasn't so much, it didn't feel rah-rah in the way that America can get. It almost felt like this is our first step back to like competence and normalcy. And I think that it just had so much more weight than if it had just say it hadn't been Trump. Say it had been like Mitt Romney ended up being sort of the conservative president for the last 4 years, and then they'd won. I don't think that like those speeches would have held as much weight as they did after all the events, which is pretty obvious to say. But I didn't, to your point, Max, no, I didn't feel cynical or eye-rolly. I actually got swept up in sort of like this return to like something you could truly, I guess, be proud of if you lean a certain way politically.
Okay, so my other question is when it came to the lineup performance is always really interesting. It's like, okay, because when you get a call from the White House, most people show up, and you got your sort of like regular cast of characters. Like you had Springsteen was there, Gaga was there, Katy Perry, she sang
Tom Hanks
fireworks. Tom Hanks hosted it, you're like, okay, that's good. But obviously America is a very divided place right now. And I was interested to see what sort of country music stars showed up. Because when you're talking about like who can speak to those red states and like who will sort of get on board with like this sort of grand vision of America that we're all as one, we have more in common than we have differences, etc. I was impressed that they got Garth Brooks, right? He did Amazing Grace. And I think they got Tim McGraw and some other country stars. So I guess my question, Shane, do you think that helps bridge the gap a little bit? Or for people that are like annoyed or hate the Democrats or like don't think much of Biden, do you think when they see their favorite country star up there, that they go, well, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot? Or do you think it's pointless?
No, I don't think it's pointless. I think it's the long road to getting there, but it's the beginning of something. Mm-hmm. It creates hate for Garth Brooks temporarily, but you do enough of these, and before you know it, then you're on his side, right? Or it's like, hey, the Biden's not so bad, but still, fuck him. And then it's like, okay, he's not so bad, but he's okay. And then before you know it, it could maybe just be where they kind of hate him, but it's not super intense.
Yeah, so I agree with you. And on that point, I was thinking about Biden's speech, and I think about a lot of these speeches, and I always think that they should open with talking to the other side. He eventually got there. He said, Mike, you watched Biden's speech, like about, at probably the last quarter of his speech, he was like, and for the people who didn't vote for me, blah, blah, blah. I'd address that within the first minute. I'm going to say, it's like, look, I know, I'm so proud of our coalition and every diverse face, et cetera, whatever. But then go straight for the people who didn't vote for you and go, it's like, I know there's a lot of people here that, might not believe in our vision, but I want to say, I'm here to work for you. I am your servant and I want to make your life better. And I know we have different ways about how we can make our lives better, but I want you to show some trust in me because I'm here to serve you. Just get to that point immediately. And I find that sometimes they do a little too much, politicians do a little bit too much preaching to the other side, and they lose an opportunity to reach out. Would you agree with that, Mike? Or what did you think of the speeches in general?
Yeah, no. I thought it was a great speech. He's hitting all the markers that he needs to hit, and even exceeding some for, like you said, a guy that seemed a little slower and a little older. He's really delivering at this early stage. I also think sometimes ultimately that he can be as civil and as inclusive as he wants at this stage, but it's it's gonna get ugly. You know what I mean? It's still gonna be a battle, and he might win over a couple people with a talk of unity, but there's just some people he's never going to win over anyway. And ultimately what they do over the coming months and years is going to sort of make people feel one way or the other, So I do agree with this, the semantics of the speech and, the best way to lay one out. It can be important, but for such a small section of people, the pundits or the people that are watching it with a sort of different angle, like the performative or the entertainment aspect of it. But ultimately, does somebody in Iowa give a shit if he opens with "I'm thinking of you"? They're probably not even watching, to be honest. So it's I don't know who he's exactly speaking to. One thing I was wondering though, I said to Danica at one point, because CNN was teasing it throughout the day. So after they sort of did all the procedural stuff, it's they had, all the pundits talking, and they were like, hey, the big show starts at 9 or 8 or whenever it started. But in the bottom right of the ticker all day long, it was just Bruce Springsteen, John Legend. They just kept showing the photos. And I said, Danica, two things. I'm one, I guess they would be putting these on anyway because they want people to watch this thing on CNN tonight. And so you put all the star power, you put Katy Perry's photo. I'm but it's been on a constant loop. Do you think that Trump, one, do you think he's just gone back to Mar-a-Lago and he's just kind of golfing and not paying attention? Or do you think he's I fucking need to see how this whole thing's going? I need to see how they're doing this. And all day he just sees all these A-listers photos in the corner that they're going to be performed. He couldn't get anybody for his. And I just wonder if it actually needled him.
No, he had Antonio Sabato Jr. at his. That's not true, Mike.
I'm sorry. You're right.
Come on.
Scott Baio was there.
Fake news.
Yeah. Dean Cain. Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah. God. Yeah.
Do you think he watched? That's
Trump
my question.
doing.
Shane, do you think that Trump watched the inauguration throughout the day?
100%. I don't think he can help himself. I think he has the narcissism complex, though, where he's just listening to see if his name gets mentioned, too, good or bad. I still think he gets a dopamine hit.
Max, do you think he attended?
Do you think he
No,
watched?
no, sorry. This leads to my. Sorry, let me ask that again because that's going to be my next question.
Yeah, did he attend? That's a way more intriguing thought.
I was getting ahead of myself because the other thought I had was, you know how like you kind of like you take your ball and you go home, like you're like I don't want to go to that fucking party anyway, and then it's like 10:30 on the night that you don't go to the party and you're like, why was I being a baby? I was wondering if you think Trump was like, I should have just went and like I would have been on camera at least, and now no one's even talking about me.
I think you're totally right. I think Shane's right in that he watched it, and then because if he had because the whole like leading into this and him like leaving that morning and taking like Air Force One, I guess didn't Biden have to sign off on him using Air Force One to like leave or something like that? Which
I
is like
didn't read
Biden's
that,
like
but
sure.
that's hilarious.
I think so. Yeah, because basically the tone of it was just that like Trump was being a little bitch. That's like it was just so many like veiled shots at Trump. You're like, well, this guy, like it was just like so embarrassing. So people got that at him, like, and people have like kind of short memories too. I find in the media. So and especially with Trump, where it's like the second he did something like with a little bit of dignity at any point in the last 4 years, people are like, hey, he's acting kind of presidential. So I think Mike, you're right. Like if he had just like agreed, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna show up, and then like and been on stage and was hobnobbing with the other former presidents. He's like, hey, I'm one of you guys. And then like he's joking around with Bill Clinton and he's like talking to Barack. It would have made it uncomfortable for those guys, but he would have, I think, looked kind of cool being there, and people would be like, oh, he's acting like a dignified. This is what the power, the changing of power in our great Constitution is all about, is that you show up. And he would, but as instead, CNN just made fun of him. Everybody just made fun of him every day because he's the kid who went home with his ball. You're totally right. And I think if he really wanted, now I'm thinking of it, if he really wanted to stick it to Obama, he would have showed up, and Obama would have had to talk to him because you know what it's like to go to a party where you like see some person you used to work with or something, and you're like, I fucking hate this guy, and then you find out the guy's not coming to the party, and you're like, thank God that guy's not coming to the party. Fuck. Oh, that would have ruined my whole fucking night if that guy was at the party. And that's So, and Trump obviously, I guess he's more fearless on Twitter. Maybe in real life he's more like timid or something. He likes to go to a place where everybody's like admiring him, but maybe he'd feel like an idiot, like a social outcast of the party. I don't know.
Totally. That probably fed into the decision, right?
Yeah, it would be very awkward.
I said that this is kind of related. I was thinking about the insurrection last week with
just on one of your walks. Just
insurrections.
Yes.
Okay, do you think the word insurrection is too, not that I totally even know what that word means, but do you think it's too grand of a statement for these yahoos that took over the White House? Mike, like, do you think it should have been called something else?
Well, the media has started calling it just a riot. People call it a riot, and not like a good way. Like that party was a riot, meaning like, you know, like, you know, where you smash it.
It was a riot.
So, I mean, the definition of insurrection is a violent uprising against an authority or government. So at its essence, it was...
You just had that on your desk, Mike, that definition?
It's in my brain, baby. No, I just looked it up on the old phone here.
Oh, okay.
I was typing as I was talking about
That was quick
riot.
research, yeah.
Oh, thanks, yeah. Well, we don't have Erica here, you know what I mean? Normally we'd have her on it.
It's true.
Erica, that was a veiled shot.
No. We love Erica. The word would seem appropriate.
Speak for yourself. Continue. Kidding, Erica.
The word insurrection would seem appropriate, but it does feel severe for like what we ultimately now know was just like, you know, a bunch of rowdy MAGA people who, you know, found themselves in the palace and were like, holy shit, didn't think this would happen, and then acted goofy. Didn't feel like there was an organized plan, you know?
But to get that many people out, though, isn't that so much organizing?
They came to watch him talk. He was talking in person like 6 blocks away. That's why they came to he sort of started the protest. Yeah, they came, watched his speech, and then he was like, we got to go march down to the Capitol building and let them know, let those people know. This is the whole like ambiguity about whether he incited it or not. And so then in his telling of it, Trump would say, oh, I wanted them to go down there and chant or whatever. But then once they all got down there, they pushed over the barricades and got into the building. Yeah,
I thought it was like how, like, you know, we get Dan Hamilton to organize a bachelor party and then it's just a nightmare. But I thought it was like that, but with like thousands of people. And I almost had a weird like I was in awe that they were able to be that organized, but it was just like, let's go over there and get it there now. It was just like that.
Yeah. So the way that I understand the order of events is like the Trump campaign basically were like, let's do a thing called like Save the Vote or whatever. They did some branding that I can't remember. And they basically said, we're all going to let these politicians know, let the swamp know that they've screwed over your favorite president, Trump. So everybody, let's protest in Washington. So people came all from out of state, and Trump was like, and I'm speaking. So like, it's like he in person went to a stage. That's why they were there, because it wasn't even like it was a grassroots thing. It was like the Trump campaign sort of organized this protest because obviously he feels like the election was stolen. Everybody gets there. Trump riles them all up in person, and then they all march down to the Capitol building.
So those guys always just carry hog ties and all those.
Well, if you're going to go, you never know if trouble's going to happen. The flaming torches was a weird choice, but it's like a Simpsons episode where the angry mob, pitchforks, and fucking yeah.
Do we think tiki torches are able to be bought in good conscience now, or does it still have that stink on it?
It's a great question, man.
It just felt funny to me because because it was like not many people. I know Congress was in session, and I know there's stories about like AOC really feeling like her life was in danger. Like there was like real threat there for sure. But when it came to like a government takeover, it just was like America's like such a massive place, and the government, it doesn't even seem like the most like. They're important, but they're not the most powerful necessarily. Like it's like if somebody like took over like Mark Zuckerberg's like phone or something, that would feel like it was like a bigger deal than people storming.
I think you have to, though. It's like if the president is murdered, you have to call it an assassination. You can't just say, oh, they killed him or whatever. And I think if the Capitol is stormed, you have to come up with some grandiose word, or maybe it takes away from how monumental it was.
Yeah, it just at this point in time, nobody's at work right now anyway, and like it just felt like nothing was gonna happen. I was like, okay, all right, you guys, you want to sit in the chair for a few minutes? All right, go sit on the. Okay, can you leave now, please? Anyway, I just thought it was the reaction was like these people are so fucking lame.
One of the stories that I that came out of this whole thing that was fascinating, that sort of tied to the inauguration, was on the 6th. There's that video of that officer, the Capitol building officer, Eugene Goodman. Did you guys see this one? And he basically diverts the mob away from the chamber. He like gets them going up a staircase. Whereas if they hadn't followed him, they would have got into the chamber while there were still politicians still like in there. So he's been hailed as like a hero. And he got to escort Kamala Harris on Inauguration Day. So he kind of became this like internet sensation. They called him a hero, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden he's been elevated to now like be probably the most famous like, Capitol police officer on the whole force. But it was very fascinating to see him the day of sort of get put in this prestigious position. And one, it's fascinating. His last name's Goodman, like it's very on the nose. Two, I was wondering how much his life has changed. Like, do all of his like sort of like police buddies are like, oh, big time. Like, is his family, is he a big celeb in the community? Is he like, I found myself when they were talking about him on the TV, thinking a lot about how much your life changes.
Yeah. Like, does he scrub his Twitter instantly? Like, like, oh shit, I'm on a pedestal.
Yeah, it's a good question. But that crossed my mind. I'm like, does this guy have any? Because once you become famous that quick, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, you don't know what people will find that you might have thought was innocuous in the past. But anyway, I found myself being very happy for him, and then just thinking about how we make these people like stars and how it changes, a very ordinary person's life like that. But so the performances, Shane, I know you didn't see the performances, but maybe you can glean something from this conversation. Maxie, did any performances stand out?
Springsteen, obviously, I'm a sucker.
I thought of you when I was watching it. I was like, oh, yeah, Max is loving
Was he getting off stage at an appropriate time, or was he like, oh, 2 more songs, everybody?
He did 2 hours. The thing went way, way over. Well, there was 2 types of performances, by the way. There was like the pre-taped where like the Foo Fighters like, set up a little, set in their basement and then sent that video in. And then you had people like John Legend, obviously Bruce Springsteen, Katy Perry. They were in the Capitol. They performed like in the big open sort of space with the backdrop of, the Washington Monument and all that. Like it was I found the stuff that was live on the ground, which, this is probably obvious, just hit way harder than the people that did the pre-taped stuff, either in front of a green screen or in their house.
Well, the Foo Fighters, were they just hitting like play on their CD and mouthing along?
They did their exact same SNL performance of Times Like These, which I thought was a little bit like, I'm like, maybe there's not a huge Venn diagram of crossover of audience, but I'm like,
It was the same tape from SNL. They just sent it.
SNL set. Because I was like, I watched that Foo Fighters performance. I'm like, and you guys literally just like a touring band was like, oh, we're going to do this thing for the Inauguration. Let's just do that thing that we've been rehearsing that we did on SNL. And I was just like, I felt a little lazy.
Ah, interesting. Hey, did you see Jennifer Lopez? She sang, what did she sing again?
This Land Is Your Land.
This land, but then she showed it her own song just before the finale. Did you notice that? Let's Get Loud or something. Did you notice that?
That's the title of her new song, Let's Get Loud?
No, that's a famous one. That's Let's Get Loud. Let's Get Loud.
What does she say? Fuck, my internet's
I don't know
not
that
working
one.
right now.
You don't know that song, Shane?
Let's Get Loud? No.
Which J-Lo do you know?
The one, her first single.
If You Had My Love?
Yes. That's a good one.
If you have my
Actually,
love.
Would you comfort me?
So, that's a
Tell
great
me,
song.
baby.
So, okay, I have it here.
Max, did you say that was
yeah.
a great song? Do you love?
I love that song. If You Have My Love.
You've always
that
been
was
a big
like
J-Lo guy.
I was. One of my first crushes when I was younger. Yeah. Okay, so J-Lo sang Let's Get Loud during her inauguration performance, and it was iconic. This is on BuzzFeed News. So basically, she was singing a medley of This Land Is Your Land and America the Beautiful, and just as she reached the crescendo, she belted out, Let's Get Loud, from her own song.
Wow.
Ash and I looked at each other like, what, did she just do that? It would be like...
But that's clever, because she could just be saying, all right, everybody, let's get loud. And then it's kind of like, oh, what does she mean?
She was prompting the crowd, Max. It wasn't a callback to her song. Or
But there
maybe
wasn't
a
even a
remix of
crowd in front of her. Like
Tell that to Obama and the rest of the politicians on that stage.
Well, everyone has their mask on. You're not even allowed to sing. It's not safe, to do that in public. But I was joking. I was like, I'm gonna do like, oh Canada, we stand on God. Oh, the boss is coming. Oh, that would be cool, right?
Yeah.
It would be, yeah. Does Boss It's Coming need more promotion right now?
I'd be knocking at the door. I don't know which one, but
it'd be hard to slip in pub crawl.
That was great. Garth Brooks wore jeans. That was one of the first things that made me giggle. I'm like, obviously we haven't even gotten to Bernie yet.
Oh God. Yeah. That really took over the internet. Like
that, he's the star of he's literally, I'd say he's the thing I've seen the most on the internet out of anything that came out of yesterday.
What was shocking about what he did? Just his stance, how he was sitting?
It was the outfit. Everybody else was in like, yeah, go ahead, take it, Max. You love you some Bernie.
Well, people started to do. Well, first of all, he just looked kind of underdressed. He kind of looked like my dad, like just throwing on your winter jacket, and you had to like run to the store to like pick up some groceries or something. Like that's kind of like how he looked. But then people started to dissect everything that he was wearing and holding, and so they go, "Wait a second, is this the same winter jacket he wore 2 years ago in a meme that he was famous for?" You're like, okay, so he hasn't bought a new winter jacket in a couple of years. Okay, what's the story with this like Manila envelope that he has underneath his arm? They're like, oh, and then someone told him like that's the envelope your tickets come in. So instead of like chucking them or like getting rid of the envelope like every other person would, he just like kept it with him for whatever reason. And the best part was, the mittens. Did you see the mitten story, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, the local designer or whatever or something.
The local designer, I guess he bought them or he was gifted to him 3 years ago on the campaign trail, and he's still wearing them. So, as you were saying earlier.
Even to me, though, even the mask, he was wearing like one of those like 200 in a box medical masks that you get like at Shoppers Drug Mart, when everyone else, these are very wealthy people, and this is very on brand for Bernie, but they're all wearing designer masks. Like everybody looks amazing. They all have like designer customized outfits. Everybody looks perfect. And Bernie, like Max said, looks like he literally stopped in on his way to the post office and then sat for this thing he had to go to as part of his job and was going somewhere after.
Well, this is why Bernie actually appealed to some people on the right. Like, like in the Venn diagram when like you think about like the Bernie bros, where like Bernie actually had some like white working class people who you're surprised. You're like, what? You're going to like this like Jewish guy from Brooklyn? Like, what do you have in common? But it's like, no, because he wasn't like a fancy coastal elite. So I think there's a lot of like people who are watching this ceremony that go, look at these fucking people. They're dressed up in designer stuff. That mask costs $300. Like, what's wrong with a hospital mask? And that's what makes Bernie so appealing, because he just rolls up and he's just truly a man of the people. So
Yeah.
And
awesome,
it was
man.
a cool look too, though. I wonder how contrived it was. It didn't look uncool. I feel like that's a move older Max would pull. Like in your 70s, you would pull that move, and you would kind of think about it and be like, "Yeah, this is the way to go." No?
Yeah, you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. I think there's definitely I understand that angle of appealing to people. By the way, some people thought like, oh, Max, that's like an older you. I don't know if it's because people know I like Curb Your Enthusiasm and like he looks like Larry David, or just the way I cross my legs or something.
It did remind me of you. I didn't know others were saying that, but the gloves seemed very Max-like.
And the coat. There was a vibe. There was definitely a Max vibe to it. I remember like the first time we did they gave us like a studio for the MMVAs, and we were doing a Mike on Much thing, and it was like
In a closet.
No. Oh, sorry. That was the first year. The second year they gave us the good studio. So we were going to be on camera, and we were like, well, what are we going to wear? And it's like, do we have a little budget to like go get stuff? And like, maybe we should get our hair cut, all this stuff. We were all like, whatever. And then day of, Max literally rolled in like a very ordinary shirt and a Louisville Slugger floppy hat. And he's like, all right, let's fucking do this. And I'm just like, this is classic Max.
Yeah, I think at that point in time, that baseball hat was in, and Shane's wearing one just like it. I think
But he's not at an awards show up for awards and hosting something on air.
But I think your fame is really what you're wearing. It's like admitting you didn't graduate high school if you're a massive star. It's very cool. But if you're, bagging groceries, you might be less inclined to be like, oh, I didn't graduate high school. It's a status symbol when you have a lot to not act like it.
Yeah, I think you even called me out on that one. It's like Max wears a hat because like I quote unquote want to be like incognito. if I'm,
like
going
Leo,
out.
like Leo, right?
Yeah.
Like this is his move, and it just makes him look more famous. It's like, you can go out, George, in a suit. Oh man, I got to do this. Yeah.
Any other performances, Max, that stood out?
Okay, well, one thing I kind of wanted to get to was this New Radicals got back together, and obviously their massive song "Get What You Give" it was Biden's sort of theme song. They haven't performed together in 20 years. This guy's just like it ended up being a songwriter, like the main dude in the band. He's written "Game of Love" by Michelle Branch, Santana, a bunch of other hits, and he's sort of having a field day because he started doing interviews around this performance, basically kind of bragging that people have thrown like loads of money at New Radicals to come back and do reunion shows, but he never has done it. He's like, I just don't want it. I just don't care. It kind of makes him seem like a really cool guy. But finally, they did it for this, and it was cool. They played the song. He wore the bucket hat. All good. But it got me thinking, like the way he sort of executed this comeback was pretty ideal. It wasn't like, we're going to announce our tour and people care about it for like the one day on Twitter. And then once the tour comes around, I don't know how much people actually really give a shit about it. So this is like sort of like the biggest look you could probably get if you're the New Radicals. So I was thinking about like, what are other reunions you want to see happen in your life? Because obviously there's like actors that maybe spent screen time together, like Favreau and the other guy in Swingers,
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn. I think they've done some reunion stuff. I also think a lot about sports. How I'm like, it would be really cool if like Westbrook got traded to the Brooklyn Nets. And so it's like bring back the big three. And so it's like Westbrook, Harden, Durant, or if Kyrie ended up on the Lakers. Like I like reunions. The idea of reunions make me very happy because like I think I kind of like just have like yearning for the good old days or something. Is there anybody who hasn't got back together in any realm, whether it's comedians, actors, musicians, athletes, that you're like, those guys are due? I'm putting you guys on the spot right now because I know I didn't really give you a heads up on this, but
it would be very fun, I think, if Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and Michael Jordan entered the 3-on-3 league that Ice Cube started.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Yeah, that is funny. I do like the idea of like them. Yeah, an over 50 league, with like a bunch of retired basketball players.
Well, that's what the Ice Cube league is pretty much. Well, over 40, I guess. And Steve Kerr could be the fourth. It would be really exciting.
Is there an age limit in that league? I almost feel like it's just like whatever three you put together if you're a former pro or something, or like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like how Joe Johnson played in that league, and then he actually joined an NBA roster after.
Yeah.
But that would be a very, very, very good one. That's like they always talk about, like, remember, you know how they have that weird competition in the NBA All-Star game where it's like a former pro, or sorry, like a former legend, a current pro, and then like a WNBA player? Yeah.
I've got a good one for you, Mike.
Hit me. I want to hear it.
Tell me if you think it would be good. Okay, so we get Paul McCartney,
Yeah.
Sean Lennon, Ringo, and then I don't know, John Mayer or something, and they reformed the Beatles.
Or Danny Harrison. George Harrison has a son.
George Harrison's son. Looks just like him, too.
Identical.
Okay, yeah. What would you think of that? Would that be satisfying for you in any way? Or would you be like, this sucks?
No, I'd pay attention. The thing that I've always thought is cut out Ringo and cut out Paul. And I thought that the Beatles children should start a band because you have Sean Lennon, who's a musician. You have James McCartney, who's a musician. You have Zach Starkey, who's a drummer. He was in Oasis. And then you have Danny Harrison, who's also a guitar player. Like all four of these children, these sons, all picked up instruments just like their parents. So in theory, all four of those guys could start a band. They would never do it. And Zach Starkey's like a legit sort of like touring, respected drummer. Like I said, he was in Oasis for a bit. And Sean Lennon obviously has a musical career. Did you ever hear that interview with Sean Lennon and Mark Maron, where like James McCartney, Paul's son, is actually like texting Sean during the interview, and and then Sean's like, "Oh, that's James, that's Paul's son." And then Maron's like, no way. He's like, really? He's like, yeah, I'll get back to him later. And then Maron like explodes laughing. And he's like, no. He's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. But yeah, anyway, I've thought about the Beatles children starting a band for sure.
Would be funny if they formed and their first single was like a ridiculous pop hit like Mambo No. 5 or something. That to me would be very satisfying.
Yeah.
Any like acting duos or are there any couples that you hope get back together that like really kind of made you sad that they broke up, like Mark Anthony and J-Lo or something like that?
Brad and Jen would be the really celebrated one, right?
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
That'd be awesome.
Ooh.
That'd be a good one. Acting duos. That's a good question. Like Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker for like a Rush Hour sequel.
I would love that.
I know that
was my favorite movie of all time. Up until about 3 years ago, someone asked me what my favorite movie of all time. I'd be like Rush Hour 1 or Rush Hour 2. I love those movies growing up. Oh man!
When I really wanted like a Ghostbusters reunion, like before Harold Ramis passed away. I thought they were going to get together and do that, and then that all changed. Although it's so funny because all these things that I was kind of looking forward to, we've talked about this before, they all got pushed. Like that Beatles doc by Peter Jackson that should have been out by now. Ghostbusters that Jason Reitman did, obviously a brother of former podcast Catherine Reitman. That's done and in the can. That should have been out, I think, in June. And you know what I mean? Now we're in 2021. Apparently Bill Murray's in that. I'm fascinated by that. But yeah, it's a good one. Acting duos. I feel like any acting duo or like, ensemble that you'd want to get back together, they've done it at this point for money. Like Arrested Development got back together. Like all these beloved shows have all done reunions. Parks and Rec, like everybody's doing reunions just because either there's like a great paycheck or there's a good cause. There's not many that have been kept apart if they're alive these days. I feel like nostalgia is the strongest drug there is and everybody's cashing in on it.
What about Three Amigos reunion? Would you think that would be a good movie?
I'd pay attention, but I don't think anybody likes Chevy Chase. Like Martin Short and Steve Martin seem to love working together. They tour together,
They tour each other. Yeah. They tour together, right?
But I think if Chevy's like, hey guys, what do you think? Three Amigos, they're probably like, yeah, we're going to, I don't know. We'll get back to you, Chevy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes there's like bands working with producers that like they had, I'm trying to think like, I guess this wouldn't be possible, but because he passed away. But like, and this is probably a question for Greg, but the first Weezer record was produced by Rick Ocasek, who's the singer in the Cars. And people love the Blue album a lot. And there's like a sound to that, which is really special. And I think a lot of Weezer fans would be like, oh, I just wish stuff sounded more like the Blue album. And it's like, get back together with that producer. I find that happens a lot, actually, with bands where it's like, okay, you didn't do the thing you did earlier. Oftentimes we'll go back to the producer eventually. Like who produced the first like Strokes record or something like that? Like, yeah. So yeah, like that kind of thing where, you're missing that signature sound that you've gone away from. You're missing that producer.
I will say that like, The reunion that I thought about probably the most over the last couple of years was I really, 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 once the Raptors got good, I wanted them to bring Vince back. I wanted him to be like how many guys, like in our championship year with Kawhi, how many guys did we have at the end of that bench, whether it was like Eric Moreland or Jody Meeks or Jeremy Lin or dudes that, you could never name that didn't contribute. It's like we couldn't have got Vince in there, but ultimately there was reasons for that. Vince wanted to still get playing time at 39, 40 and all that stuff. And he got paid by the Hawks and Sacramento. But I was like, I just really wanted us to like trade for him so he could finish it out in Toronto.
Yeah.
That was
I ended up being at his last game in Toronto. It wasn't supposed to be his last game, but then COVID made it his last game in Toronto. But I got a lot of good footage of him. Every time he had the ball, I filmed him.
We should put it on our Insta story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it riveting? Good seats?
It's pretty cool. And at the end of the game, I don't know if I should say this, but he was scoping babes from the bench. With what's the Trae Young? Him and Trae Young were pointing out some hotties.
Again, I don't know if on the pod.
Oh well. Still beep my name.
Yeah. So the New Radicals. Did you see Katy Perry's performance, Max?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome.
That's
the most production value. That took my breath away. She sang
Same.
fireworks.
Fireworks. I was going to suggest that.
Well, it was great because it started very like stoic, and she's just kind of in front of like the National Monument or whatever, and it's just her and a microphone. And like, of course, like you're not performing on a big stage in front of a lot of people, so most of the performances were like that. Springsteen's just like him and a microphone on the stairs, whatever. And then all of a sudden, the fireworks start going off, and it's like the best and biggest firework display that like I've ever seen. And they went off through the whole rest of the song, all throughout the city of Washington, D.C. If I didn't know the fireworks were scheduled for that time, and I was just like at home and shots started going off, I'd be like, oh, the insurrection's actually happening. This is going to scare the shit out of me. But it was
I'm not
amazing.
a singer or anything, but isn't it hard to sing when a massive amount of fireworks are going off above your head? Like,
It was in the distance. Like, so they had her like in the performance area, and at this point Biden and Jill Biden are in the White House, and they're out on like the balcony, and then like off like like in the like like however many hundreds of meters, yards, whatever it is away, that's where the things are lined up. So like she's doing fireworks, and then when she gets to this giant sort of epic part of like the chorus, the fireworks start going off, her voice is like bang on, and they keep cutting back to like Joe Biden and Jill Biden like on the balcony watching the fireworks, and just the way it was like this amazing culmination to everything that had happened, and it just felt like so uniquely like American. The production value was like amazing, and I just remember thinking like I was just like I got swept up. That was the most swept up I was all day long. The speeches, anything, that song Fireworks playing while they were showing Joe Biden in the White House taking in the fireworks in this sort of crowning achievement of his thing is sort of the end of something that a lot of people suffered through, and the beginning of something, a new hope, if you will. And just something about that song. That song's always been a banger, but it felt like the chorus. I was like, I don't remember the chorus being this emotional. And I'm like, the fireworks are obviously like elevating the sort of the way that this chorus goes, but that to me was when I was like, God damn, this is like this is like incredible. This is like out of a movie. It felt like it was out of a movie. And then they even had a shot that a cameraman behind Joe Biden and Jill, so they had the shot behind them in the balcony where you could see like the fireworks and then different members of his family on different balconies in the White House. Anyway, it was quite an ending. That was like the moment where I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is probably the most emotional.
it would have been a good time if you are that sneaky heist type person to pull a heist off.
It's true. I actually had the same thought. I had the exact same thought. I was like, that's when you do your damage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do want to do a Shane surprise.
Let's do it.
Well, my surprise time, and I don't want to put a damper on the pod, but my grandma died this morning. So, surprise. No, she did. But it was it was my time when I was planning the surprise, because I do it in the morning kind of while the kids are watching TV and Betty kind of sleeps on the couch while Alex is sleeping. But that's when my dad called me. So, I kind of was out of the mode to be funny there for a second. So, yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that, man.
But, yeah.
What was her name? We don't know.
Her name, Gwyneth Cunningham.
Can you tell us about Gwyneth a bit?
Yeah, she was like the kindest woman ever. Very, very, like I've never heard her upset or angry. It was like grandma out of a movie, like, oh,
was your dad's
hi,
mom?
I love you so much. My dad's mom. And yeah, it was ridiculous. She was the cliche grandma out of a movie, always being kind and, giving you money when you came over and treats and baking. And she got dementia in her older age, but today she passed. It's just tough.
Where was she?
She was at a home, and she fought going to a home again, like most grandparents, like, this is my house, I'm not going to go. But she ended up falling and hurting her shoulder, and then the hospital recommended that she go to the home where she spent her last few years. But yeah, she was always willing to help me out with videos. Like, I used a couple funny videos of her growing up. I'd go over to her house and film her for like my first couple VJ search videos, which helped me ended up getting a job. So she helped me out in kind of every way. But yeah, very sad. But when someone has dementia, you almost lose them twice, because 5 years ago it felt like you lost her, and then now it's so final.
Oh, Shane. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's obviously a tough.
Yeah, it's
day.
tough. Yeah, I didn't think I would get that emotional because of it felt final 5 years ago, and now it's just to happen again.
How's your dad?
It's tough
today.
Oh, it's tough. And my dad works in this industry, so he is a hearse driver. So he actually wanted to take her away, like as part of his job. Like, he requested to do it, which to me, I don't know if I would want to do that, but it was kind of like the last goodbye in a way.
So he got to go to pick her up at the home?
Yeah, he removed her body, like as part of his job.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely strange times, and a damper to end it. I didn't want to open the podcast with it, because it would you'd be the first domino of sadness. So,
well, it's just so sorry to hear this. And as friends, like, it's the sort of thing. I think this is like the shitty thing. There's many shitty things about the way we're living right now, but like in normal times, this would be something where you'd come back to work. I mean, you would sit and we'd talk about her for an hour and a half at our desks, and we'd really like unpack this. And it's just like, yeah, I'm just so sorry, man. Like you said, even like with the dementia and all that, the finality of like the news and then the process and all that. What are you guys going to do for like, are you going to do like a sort of a funeral or a visitation or anything?
I think so. We're going to figure out a way. I think it's allowed. My dad was calling, when he called this morning, he detailed that a little bit, but as to the exact details, I don't know how it's going to work. But I think we all have to go separately, and just like maybe I could have like a moment with her or something, and then my sister can go at another time. I think that's how the rollout is going to work. Or maybe we're allowed to be 6 feet apart or something. But yeah.
Shane, let's end the pod. Tell us just about her life. I'd love to learn about her a little bit more. So Gwyneth is her name.
Gwyneth,
or your best Gwyneth story.
Yeah.
Best Gwyneth story.
She's from Hamilton. She was born and raised in Hamilton.
No, well, she met my grandfather in Scotland. That's pretty cool.
She's from the old country.
She brought him over. She's not from Scotland, but she was born in Massachusetts. I can't say the word Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Either Massachusetts. It might have been Missouri. Fuck, I'm so bad with this. I'll text you. She was old. She was 92 years old, guys. So excuse me if I don't know her exact birthplace, because I only met her, when she was in her 60s. But I don't know if I have a particular story, except just because she worked as an operator, like a bell operator for a while, but her whole life she never really worked after that. Mm-hmm. She just it was like
mom. That was a lot of people.
Yeah, it was my grandpa was a plumber. My grandpa went to work as a plumber, and my grandma just was the typical housewife, and like the kindest. Like, I can't like say it enough how kind, and her voice was even like that grandma you would cast in a movie, like, oh, Shane, you're the most handsome boy, here's a piece of fudge, and she'd give you a piece of fudge like that big, and you'd be like, well, can I have another piece of fudge? Like, grandma, that wasn't shit, like that was nothing. She'd be like, no, I don't want to spoil your dinner, here's a piece of an orange, and then you'd get pieces of an orange and then apple juice and eating banana muffins. It was just like the classic grandma. She held her change purse very tight, but she was also very generous when she needed to be. Mm-hmm. And she certainly helped my sister and I out so much, just on like financially it was ridiculous. And right before she got dementia, she decided to give my sister and I like a large donation because she could sense something was off. So she gave us kind of her will while she still had her marbles together.
Oh, wow. That's really special.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's that.
Yeah, let's dedicate this episode to Gwyneth Cunningham.
Yeah, Gwenny C.
Gwenny C.
All right, guys. Stay good.
See you, boys.
Yeah. Peace.
Bye.